Welcome back. Now, one of the biggest drivers of growth in the continent is infrastructure development. And I caught up with Africa Global Logistics Tony Stenning and discussed the kind of infrastructure logistic needs it's addressing in the continent. Here's that conversation.
So we have a big representation here in Kigali for this CEO conference. AGL is the leading logistical provider on the African continent, represented in most countries. We operate ports, railways, trucking, warehousing. What are the challenges? The challenges are mighty, okay? The challenges are making the ports efficient, improving and investing in rail infrastructure, particularly in the region that I'm responsible for, in the southern region, working closely with Transnet, as you know, and with the other railways within southern Africa. So it's important that we shift substantially more from road to rail, that we provide good quality service, that our customs services, our borders, we ease the whole process and the flow, right from the arrival of the cargo to its final destination, or from the start of the exports to the exit out of the country. So we work with the port authorities, we work with customs, we work closely with our customers, and we're committed to improving the overall service given by logistics providers in this continent.
And let's go there, right? You said you work with different stakeholders within the value chain. How has that been like, particularly with governments and just that private-public collaboration?
It very much depends on which country you're talking about. I would say that there is a recognition now that to get the logistics right will ultimately benefit Africa because it reduces the cost of moving cargo. So if you're delayed for days at the border between Congo and Zambia, this is going to obviously affect the cost. So we have good relationships with all the different stakeholders. Some are more adventurous, some are more creative than others. So the countries I deal with, I would say South Africa is waking up to its potential as a strong operator on these corridors. We work closely with Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia. Congo has its challenges. It's difficult to get things moving as quickly as we'd like, but there is progress. There is progress. We remain optimistic.
Okay. Perfect. I want us to zoom into that South African market, right? When we were doing a bit of the reading, we realized that there's not much presence within South Africa. Why is that the case?
Much presence from ourselves? No.
The logistics part.
No, we are strong in South Africa. We have only been in South Africa since 1997, as we were called Bolloré, now AGL. Okay, we could not operate in South Africa during the apartheid era, so we came in after that period. Okay, because you could not operate in other African countries and operate in South Africa. So we're relatively new. Okay, but I employ about 1,000 people in South Africa. We're represented in all the major cities. We're very, very strong on the cross-border operation. We run 500 trucks out of South Africa into the hinterland. So we have a strong presence in projects, in mining, in cross-border business, maybe not so strong within South Africa. Now that we're owned by MSC, which has a very strong presence globally, but also in South Africa, we're going to grow our presence in South Africa.
So you are looking to penetrate that market even further, right?
We're actively looking for opportunities in South Africa now.
Okay. Talking about penetrating the market in South Africa, we have had a number of private sector players sort of ditch the market or kind of leave that market. For example, I'll make an example out of the mining sector where we had BHP make a bid for Anglo's assets, but disregarding Anglo's SA assets as it just wanted its copper assets. How difficult is it navigating the South African environment, and what's just the overall investor sentiment in that region?
There's a lot of loaded questions there. Firstly, we don't intend to give up on South Africa. South Africa remains a very, very important market for us and for the rest of Africa, particularly the southern part of Africa. What you have to understand, which you understand better than me, you have to work with the system of South Africa. So it has a history, okay? You have to follow the BE and the developments on basically making the less privileged people be part of the community, be part of our business. This is what we're doing. So we will stick with South Africa. We will work with the South African government. There's an election coming soon. We hope for better days. Okay? I'm on a panel with Michel Phillips of Transnet tomorrow, okay, and I have hope that things will improve, and we will work with the government to improve those.
We'll definitely be sitting in on that panel, listening for some of the conversations that come out of there. Before I let you go, Tony, how is AGL taking advantage of the AfCFTA?
Of the what, sorry?
Of the Africa, yes.
Free trade has been a dream, okay? It is making progress. As you heard, or you might have heard this morning, there is still a long way to go. We are absolute believers in it. If you wish to make logistics easier, if you wish to create wealth, the free movement of people, the free movement of goods is absolutely vital. So some countries are quite advanced. I'd like to see South Africa taking a stronger role on that, okay? Not just within the countries of the Southern Africa, but elsewhere. So it's been going on actively for the last 7 or 8 years, and there's a long way to go. But I think there's progress being made.
That was the head for Southern Africa at AGL, Tony Stenning. Now, Nedbank plays a crucial role when it comes to financing infrastructure projects in the continent, and I caught up with Nedbank CIB's head of its infrastructure finance unit, Zakhele Mayisa, and he started off the conversation by telling me why Africa remains the investment destination of choice.
Africa is an investment destination. It remains a strong one. It's considered to be the last frontier in terms of infrastructure as compared to other regions, which is why we as Nedbank Corporate and Investment Banking, we are here to have conversations with the business leaders, innovative arrangements for solutions, and government, of course, from a policy making perspective, because we cannot do it alone. We're primarily here to seek partners for co-financing of infrastructure across the continent, transport logistics, water infrastructure, and digital infrastructure. The theme of the event, be at the table. Are you at the table, or are you part of the menu? We seek to be at the right table, having right conversations with the business partners.
So having right conversations and being right in the action right here in Kigali. Now, you mentioned infrastructure and it being, a sustainable growth driver for the African continent. Just take us through some of the projects Nedbank CIB is involved in.
Infrastructure is the skeleton of economic development according to the country and the continent. Africa has identified mineral resources, agricultural commodities that needs to be evacuated from the source to the market. How that happens, you need the right infrastructure, rail infrastructure, roads infrastructure, border processing infrastructure, ports infrastructure, terminal handling solutions, and storage. Nedbank, for example, has been part of the ports and logistic financing. In West Africa, we finance the port of San Pedro with other two South African banks, and we seek to expand that operation at the right time. In East Africa, we are in discussions in several countries, ranging from Kenya to Tanzania, and south, closer to home in Mozambique for the same. We have been part of the solutions from a financing perspective, but we seek to do that with the right partners in terms of other banks, multilateral development finance institutions, and also from a risk mitigation perspective, we work with appropriate risk covers, the insurance industry, to ensure that for whatever sources of financing from a debt perspective, it remains well covered in terms of the risks that are associated with financing infrastructure.
Those risks coming into play, infrastructure is a long-term game, right? And with uncertainties in the macroeconomic environment combined with what we're actually dealing at home and within Africa, what does this rather worry you and stop banks from funding those longer-term projects?
Infrastructure financing is a long-term game indeed, long gestation period. We in for making sure that projects reach bankability. How we do that, we become part of the early stage conversations in terms of how to structure those projects so that by the time they reach bankability, they talk to the needs and the terms that the banks normally expect from a perspective of infrastructure financing. What makes it a bit challenging is that policy uncertainty, and Africa as a continent is also infested with conflict, instability. If you don't have a government in place, no one will make policy, no one will be making the right decisions, no one will be engaging with the partners for financing and also for service solutions. Political stability is key. Having the right policies and frameworks in place are very key, and those they do take a long time. But also, why we would like to work with development finance institutions is to ensure that we are able to partner them at the right time. They will offer project preparation funds, of which we don't, but we factor our inputs in terms of making sure that whatever comes to the market from a financing perspective it's bankable and can close within a shorter space of time. We are in discussions with various stakeholders across the continent. It's a patience game.
Now, speaking about those political risks and political uncertainty, we do have a national election coming up in South Africa. And it seems like foreign investors are quite concerned about what could happen as there is a prospect of a coalition. Does this worry you?
To an extent, it does. Investment likes to have predictability. The political transition needs to be as smooth as possible and ensure that there's continuity. There has been some efforts to bring back efficiencies in the port and bring back the lost power security, but we need certainty that it continues beyond the elections. Regardless of which government is in place or which coalition, policy certainty is what is key. Because it can be a 10-step forward and a 20-step back if we have these constant transitions that temper with predictability. The investment market is really friendly for countries that have, one, political stability, as I mentioned, but also that is meshed with consistent private investor-friendly policies to ensure that we pick up where government has challenges to assist.
That was Zakhele Mayisa from Nedbank CIB. And that's all we have time for. From me in Kigali and the rest of the Business Day TV team, it's goodbye for now.